Tonight, as is the case each and every year in Israel, is an incredibly solemn night. Tomorrow will be an incredibly solemn day. It is Yom Hazikaron. It's Israel's Memorial Day. And particularly this year, with the loss of close to 700 soldiers, the country really, and I'm quoting others who share this, it's a country of PTSD. There's no one in Israel who doesn't know multiple people that were lost, that were killed, many in very brutal ways, many in very extremely courageous ways. And it's a very difficult time in Israel. As part of our program, we have the blessing, and I call her one of God's angels, of having Michal Hershkovitz. Michal, for over 17 years, served as a casualty officer. At this point, she's doing incredible things for FIDF in terms of the bereaved families, those who had to bury a child, those who lost a father or a husband. And Michal, if you could share with us the feeling, the mood in Israel, and share for those Americans who are participating, those Europeans, Canadians who are participating, who've never been to Israel on Yom Hazikaron, what Yom Hazikaron is like, and what it means to Israel, what it means to the country.
Thank you, Steve. I think it's one of the most holy days in Israel. We usually, Jewish people say that Yom Kippurim is the most holiest day to all of us, and it's the day that we are speaking with God, and God is listening to us. So I think that Yom Hazikaron, the Memorial Day in Israel, it's the same. It's the most holiest day in Israel. I hope that God is really listening to the cry of the families and the parents and the wives and the kids. And you know what? This year, I think it will be the whole Jewish population all over. As you said, there is no one here who doesn't know someone who died since October 7th. A neighbor, a friend, someone from the army. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, in the history of the nation, it will be the first time that there will be a Memorial Day during war, because, as you know, we didn't finish the war yet. A few days ago, one of my commander asked what we will do if a soldier will be killed on those 2 days, and we had to bury him in Mount Herzl. While in those days in Mount Herzl, there is thousands of people who are coming. How can we do a military funeral in a day like this? And the commander in the army suddenly understood that it might happen. We are still in war, and we need to be able to remember those who died just 6 months ago. And the nation is still didn't even understand what happened to us. I have a good friend who is from Be'eri, who lost her son and her husband. And she said, to who do I go? Which one I'm starting the morning with my husband or with my son? To which cemetery? One was buried in a kibbutz where now it's allowed to be buried, and the other one was buried next to Be'eri. And she said, when they told me to bury them in 2 different places, they promised me that when the Memorial Day will come, the war will finish and they will move them to be together. So it's something. There's things that we never thought about them. And now we need to be able to deal with. The army is in war. The friends of the fallen soldiers couldn't come to the funeral, couldn't come to the 30 days memorial, and we're not sure that they will be able to come to the main Memorial Day in Israel. These things that never happen here. Not to be able to be in next to the family, next to your best friend that you still remember how he died in Gaza, how he died in Khan Yunis. So it's quite unique, and it's very different, and it's very hard. I'm hearing a conversation inside the society that people saying you will go to Beersheba and I will go to Haifa because everybody wants to participate and to be there. It will be so crowded, the cemeteries, because a lot of people want to come and to be there for the family. I even heard some families said, I'm going to come a day before because they will be so crowded. I won't be able to be only with my son. So she's coming a day before to sit next to her grandson and to be only with him. It's hard. It's very hard. The commanders are still fighting. They are not able to come to meet the family of the fallen soldiers. I can tell you that the casualty officer has to come from house to house. We have to be able to do in 24 hours. We have to meet all the families. Each casualty officer has his own families. I have 11 families that I have to visit in 20 hours. I have to decide with which family I'm going to stay on the Sunday evening, or with which one of them I'm going to stand next to them on Monday in the ceremony. Usually we don't have so many casualties. So it's so hard to decide with which family I'm going to stay. With those who lost a husband and the wife is now with 5 orphans, or to be with another family who are the first family in the area who had lost a soldier. He's the only military grave in the cemetery. So they are alone, nobody with them. So where do I go? To those who has a lot of family, or to the one who is by himself? A lot of big questions that we need to find the answer to. And for sure to be with all of them, because we cannot leave them alone. So it's hard. It's hard for all of us Jews to know that those family are dealing with it, and the idea that we are still in war, it's horrible.
To contextualize what Michal is teaching us, in America, you think of Memorial Day, people go for family barbecues, people have weddings. It's a day of sales, right? Everyone's in the shopping malls. It's a day when people are going to baseball games or golfing. It's a very small percentage of the population that are visiting the memorial cemeteries, and they must feel terribly alone. And you hear in Israel, the whole country is there to support the families of the fallen. You're just hearing Michal describing how in 24 hours she needs to be with 11 different families throughout the length and breadth of Israel. And we hear the exact same thing that Michal, as a casualty officer, is sharing with us from commanders, be it brigade commanders, battalion commanders who lost soldiers. They and their families are there that day to be spending their time to be with the families of the fallen. And the whole country comes to a stop. And the whole country is in a state of reflection, is in a state of prayer, is in a state of malaise, of sadness, of depression. It's a very serious and it's a very powerful day. Michal, can you go into any specific examples, without obviously mentioning names, of families throughout your years as a casualty officer? What is the experience like meeting with the families on Memorial Day, on Yom Hazikaron?
It's very hard. They don't know how to feel. Every day of a bereaved family is a day of waking up with the understanding that your son or daughter or husband is not with you. It's not like, even if it's a year ago or Yom Kippur War, you still wake up with the same feeling that you lost someone who you loved and cared, and one of your own flesh is something on your own father, because so many people are around you. And you do feel the hug, you do feel the emotional of the people, of those who went to the same high school with him, those who were in the same neighborhood, in the same building, but you are still alone. You are still with your own pain. And this pain in the Memorial Day become very, very strong. We have 2 sirens on Sunday evening, on a Monday at about 11. that opening and close the Memorial Day. But for those families, it's not really close the Memorial Day. For them, it's throughout the years. The idea
Every
of
day is Memorial Day, you're saying.
Exactly. And for those 24 hours, it's become harder. It's become 10 times bigger. I know that a lot of the family tell that in this day, they suddenly remember the knock on the door. During the years and during time, families try to forget the minute that they heard the knock on the door. And that from that day, their life changed forever. And something happened in Memorial Day that a lot of family wake up and they say, last night I dreamt about it. I remember the knock. I remember what I was wearing. I remember where was I at home. So something else is happening in this day. A lot of bad, horrible memories about the first day is rising and taking a lot of the spirit of the family. You can be hugging one way from the army, and in the other hand, the army was the one who knocked you on the door and gave you the horrible notification.
Another question that some of our participants would like you maybe to give us an insight into, Michal. In Israel, in this case, it's Sunday night, Monday, is Yom Hazikaron. And then Monday night, Tuesday, goes into Yom Ha'atzmaut. Yom Ha'atzmaut in Israel is one of the happiest days, one of the most joyous, one of the most exciting, powerful days of the year. For not talking about the typical Israeli, I'm talking about the families of the 24,000. Actually, now it's 25,000. Those families who have lost someone. It must be very, very challenging to go from Yom Hazikaron to hearing, fireworks the night of Yom Ha'atzmaut, to hearing, smelling barbecues in the neighborhood, to hearing noise, to hearing music, etc. What's it like for those families when, as you said, they never leave Yom Hazikaron? Yom Hazikaron is part and parcel of who and what they are for the rest of their lives. If you could share that with us.
Every family doesn't celebrate Independence Day. Never. You cannot do the switch. You cannot do the from remembering your beloved one to celebrating. They always say, I don't need it. For me, it's not really, there's not a reason to smile. There isn't a reason to celebrate. So the change to be in the Independence Day for them, it's not really, it's not for them. It's for the rest of the Israel society. It's not for the bereaved family. They won't go and celebrating at night. They will stay at home with their family, with their close family, and be together to make it more for them. A lot of the family throughout the years tried to change it and said, maybe we'll change the date of Yom Ha'atzmaut. Maybe we'll do the separating between them so we can also celebrate it. But I can say that from those I know, none of them are really celebrating Yom Ha'atzmaut.
What I'd like to spend a few minutes now doing is sharing with our participants in much of these programs and the families that are being taken care of really is something under your jurisdiction. It's an area that you're going to be involved with for many years. And to our participants, the Ministry of Defense and the IDF has asked us to do a number of things. One of them is what's known as the Legacy Program. For the orphans and for the younger siblings, and keep in mind at this point, there are 355 orphans just from this war alone. There are over 800 younger siblings just from this war alone. And those are being brought, many of them, to the United States. There's a capital camp. There's a group that's coming both from, it's going to be supported by the Baltimore community, by the Montgomery County community, the DC and the Fairfax County community. There's another group that's going to be supported on the West Coast, having a traveling camp, almost like USY on wheels, but for these kids. There's 2 programs like that that'll be taking place on the East Coast, based out of the Glen Point and Teaneck, and they'll be going up and down the East Coast. And as well, there's a program that's going to be taking place at Camp Stone. And these kids, many of them are orphans, many of them are younger siblings. In the aftermath of the camp experience, they'll be spending time with communities. They'll be actually interacting and engaging with the various communities, having a Shabbaton in those communities. And what will happen is, which is very powerful, is that the camp counselors, the madrichim and madrichot, they themselves have lost a father. They themselves have lost a brother or a sister at war. And in something that Michal shared with us when she was a guest on this very, very briefing that we do each and every Sunday, each and every Wednesday, is Michal shared with us that very often the young kids, when we say young kids, kids either are in 7th, 8th grade, or the older group, the high school, the 9th and 10th graders, they really can't talk to their parents because all they see is the pain on their parents' face. And they themselves never have a chance to articulate, to emit the emotions, to be effusive, to share what they're feeling. In here, for the first time, they're in a very, very safe, protected space because they're with people who are in the very same shoes that they walk, have experienced the exact same experience they're experiencing. And through this program, they actually have a bonding and they create lifelong friends because of the common experience. And the best analogy I could give to the participants of this briefing is think about in our communities, a survivor may share with us their story, but there's a place of comfort that a Holocaust survivor has that is only amongst other survivors who have gone through similar experiences, because anyone else is an outsider. Anyone else really can't appreciate. And for them to open up and expose these raw emotions about the most acute and intense emotions, it's not something the average person is going to do with an outsider, no matter how loving, no matter how kind, no matter how good the outsider is. And that's the power of this program. Another program that Michal is overseeing is something the Ministry of Defense is running, where they're taking, I call them micro-demographics. We talked about the 680 families who've lost a loved one in this war, but some of them are widows who've lost a new husband. Some of them are Druze. Some of them might be Orthodox Jewish families. Some of them might be this, might be that. Some of them will be a situation where they've lost an only son. Some of them are a situation where there are multiple children and they lost one of their children. And what's happening is they're being taken as groups, not just to 680 families, but in small, intimate groups that have commonalities. Some of them might be, families that come from this country, have immigrated to Israel from this country, and they're taking them away for a week. We fund at FIDF them to be taken away for 3-4 days every year to a facility called Givat Olga, where they're therapists, where they have these annual retreats. We pay for that every year, but this is raw. This is not someone who lost someone 10 years ago or 12 years ago. It just happened in the last few months, and they're being taken away with therapists in micro-demographic groups for a week, 8 days at a time. Some of them will be taken to Cyprus. Some of them will be taken retreat places other way. And these retreats are extremely powerful. Give them the chance, number one, to bond with people of similar backgrounds. Give them the chance to go through a catharsis, to open up, and to be in a safe space, a space with people who can appreciate what they're feeling because they're people in the same shoes, that are walking in the same shoes. That's a second program that we're funding. A third program that we're funding, and this is something that came from the bereaved families themselves. This was a request to the Ministry of Defense. They want an eternal legacy for their loved one. What do we mean an eternal legacy? We're funding professional videographers and professional producers to produce a film, a video. I call it a video. Today, it's really an electronic link, but a video of the life of the fallen soldier, the soldier's childhood, the soldier's adolescence, the soldier's relationships, the soldier's experiences, the soldier's passions, the soldier's hobbies, the soldier's time as a soldier with their battalion or in their unit in the army. The soldier vis-a-vis the relationship with the parents, the grandparents, the siblings, etc. A very professional, very powerful film for each and every soldier. That becomes an eternal memory for the families. It can be shared with friends, with neighbors, can be shared with classmates. It is also something that will be in the Yom Hazikaron, the memorial hall, this beautiful, incredibly meaningful, powerful structure on Mount Herzl that was created over years by the Ministry of Defense as a memory to the fallen. That's a program that we're funding. And another program that we're funding is a support for each and every one of the 680 families. They get support from the government. But let's say this child who's an orphan or the child who's a younger sibling is having a challenge in school. They just can't concentrate. They just can't focus. And they need tutors. Or let's say this child, may have a special talent or have a need for an outlet. Piano lessons, ballet lessons, swimming lessons, Krav Maga or judo lessons, things that are not part of the budget and that the family can't afford. Things like this, we are funding, meaning the FIDF has been asked to fund. It's being administrated by the social workers of the Ministry of Defense, by the casualty officers of the Ministry of Defense, and we're funding it. It's a program that Michal is overseeing, that she is running and managing, and that will make a connection between our donors here in the United States who will be adopting these families and funding these needs. These are not the basic paying the utilities or putting food on the table. These are the next step above and beyond utilities and putting food on the table. Michal, if you would like to speak about any of those programs, or you'd like to share any other thoughts with us in terms of Yom HaZikaron, please share with us.
I would like to say one thing about Legacy Camp. I want to share with you that we had a 10 days interview the children and their parents about legacy. Those who are going to be in camp, which is bar mitzvah age, and the bigger one who are 17. And one of the family came, two children, sorry. They had a t-shirt that says Kfar Aza. And the grandma came with them. And when I interviewed them, I said, please tell me a little bit about yourself. And then I asked the grandma, how come she's here, not the parents? Because I know that usually the kids coming with one of the parents. And then she said, there isn't any. Both of them were killed in the kibbutz. And for a split second, I had to think about what I just heard. Those kids lost both of their parents in the kibbutz. They've been killed, murdered actually. And she's allowing me to take them now for 10 days to the state, to New York. And I asked her, how can you do it? How much do you believe in me to be able to give me those two kids for amazing 10 days of joy and happiness and being together? And she said, what do you mean? You have IDF in your name. You are the friends of the Israeli army. If there is one group that I will allow these kids to go with abroad, is with you. And I will never forget this sentence for the rest of my life. I will never forget. A person is saying to me, you are the friends of Tzahal. You are the friends of the IDF. I trust you. When she just 6 months ago or 7 months ago lost her daughter and her husband. And I think that I'm taking with me this sentence, and this what will make this journey of legacy so important for those kids. The ability for us as an amazing organization with the IDF, with the army, with the casualty officer, to give those almost 600 amazing kids 10 days or 2 weeks of feeling free.
Michal, before we conclude, any last thoughts or any maybe stories or insights you want to share about Yom Hazikaron, maybe about some of the families that you look after as a casualty officer that have become part of your family and that you nurture, that you mentor, that you love, and that you care for.
So I'm going to be, I have two families that the commander and the soldier died together. And it's become a bond of the two families. Like they didn't know, they knew each other before he died, but they weren't friends because the commander and the soldier are not friends. But they did die in the October 7th together. And I know that those two families decided to be forever together in the Memorial Day. Even though one is in Kfar Saba and one is in the other side of Israel, they decided this is what makes them one. One family is very religious and the other one is not at all. And you see how the death of the boys make them one unit, make them together, make them one family, and how people who are usually not living in the same area, doesn't really believe in the same thing, when they lost together their son, they become one unit. Things that were different and make them two different parts of the society now become one. And I think it's quite unique. And I think that it's, for me, it's warmed my heart to see it, to see how a family that are so different before the loss of their children become one, become with the sadness and with the loss. And they really show us that a mom that loses her son, or a parents that losing their son, it doesn't matter if they are Druze, if they are religious, if they are non-religious, the loss, the pain of the lost make you as a one unit with those who also lost their sons. So I think this is what I'm taking for me as something that unites us. And it's so important right now. You know, we have the sentence that says every time Am Yisrael Chai. And there is days that this sentence is very hard to say out loud because the heart is already so broken to small pieces, and you need only the small thing that make him whole again. And this is the thing that I'm taking with me. And I really do believe that we need to believe in the sentence that Am Yisrael Chai, because we need to be together. We need to be united. If you live abroad, if you live in the state, if you live here in Israel, it's one Am Yisrael. It's everybody is one. And it's so important to keep it, and it's so important to cherish it. So for me, I think this is the last thing that I remember for Yom Hazikaron, for the Memorial Day. And thank you, of course. Thank you all.
Michal, thank you. And I tell you, you're a treasure, and you embody and you represent everything that is beautiful about the IDF. And we know that this night and this day of Yom Hazikaron is a very, very challenging one, and a very, very, very painful one for you. You have one heart, but it's broken in many different places for all of those families that you love and you nurture and you care for. And we just want to wish you strength over the next 24 hours.
Thank you. I'm going to cry. Thank you so much.
Thank you.